Hello and welcome to opening trap number 15. My name is Mauri and this is the Rubinstein trap. So the unusual thing about this trap is that it is named not after the person that did the trap, but after the person that fell for the trap. Not once, but twice. And Akiba Rubinstein was a very strong chess player. He was definitely among the very best in the world in his day, and according to some sources he was even the strongest player in the world in the years leading up to World War I, when Emanuel Lasker was world champion. So definitely a very strong player, but he fell for this trap that we're about to see. In the year 1928, in a game against Max Oewe, and then 2 years later he fell again for this trap, then against Aljechin. So let's see how that went in our main game against Oewe. So this is a trap, by the way, that white does, and so Oewe is going to do it in our main game, which went like this. Knight f3 starts out as a ready, but then transposes to a queen's gambit declined here. And after the moves knight f6, bishop g5, knight bd7, e3, nothing unusual is happening. They're developing their pieces. Takes, castles. So far so good. Rook e8, queen b3, h6. And now after the move bishop f4, white not only retreated that bishop that was attacked, but at the same time sets up a very devious trap. And let's see how Rubinstein now falls for this trap. But first, actually, let's see what he could have done instead. So the move bishop f8 would have been fine for black. And the move b5 also, for example. But Rubinstein played the move knight h5, and looks like a very logical move, attacking that bishop on f4, but the bishop is not forced to move or anything. Instead, white now has this very nice move, which is knight takes d5. Very surprising if you haven't seen this before. Seems like he's just giving that knight for little compensation. But the point of the trap is that if black takes, then white follows up with the move bishop c7, trapping the black queen. So obviously if the queen takes the bishop, then we have a rook on c1 that will take the queen. So white will now win the black queen and have a winning position. So that's the whole point of this trap. So Rubinstein, of course, didn't take the knight. He instead took on f4, but now white can simply recapture with the knight on d5 and save that knight, and he's up a pawn. So maybe you're thinking it's just a pawn, but for a strong player like Max Oewe, who was later world champion, being a pawn up means that he's probably gonna win if there is no compensation, which in this case there is no compensation for the lost pawn. It took him many more moves to win this game, and we won't go into that. It's been now 14 moves and the game lasted 55 moves, but being a pawn up meant that he won the game later. So let's see also how this happened 2 years later, in the year 1930, where Aljechin was white and Rubinstein was black. That game went like this: d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, and c4. So we have another queen's gambit, and now another queen's gambit declined with the move bishop g5. Very important move to do this trap. And so let's just see how this goes here. Knight c3, you can see those are very similar maneuvers to the previous game. a6 and takes on d5, take bishop d3, c6, covering that pawn on d5, but to no avail when white is able to do this trap. Castles, knight e4, and now the bishop on g5 is under fire, so white moves the bishop to f4, but at the same time sets up this trap. And this is often how traps are done when you make a move that seems to be doing something else. Like it seems white is just moving the bishop because it was attacked. So that's a very devious kind of a trap. Easy to fall for such a trap, which Rubinstein does now with the move f5. So now it's not the same position as in the other game, but white can do the exact same thing, which is knight takes d5. So the idea, of course, being the same. If you take that knight, then bishop c7, trapping the black queen. So poor Rubinstein falling for this again. After knight takes d5, again can't take the knight, so he went bishop d6. But just like before, he is now down a pawn for no compensation. So so he lost this game as well in 46 moves. This was played in San Remo in 1930. And I can just follow this for a few more moves here. Whoops. After bishop takes d6, knight takes knight f4. White is just a pawn up, and it's no fun to be a pawn down if you're playing against somebody who is a very strong player like Alexander Alyekhin or Max Höwe. So this ended in victory for white in both cases. So this is the Rubinstein trap. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and maybe, who knows, you'll be able to do it in one of your own games sometime. But thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.